lights. She'd breeze past him without a glance, but if he accidentally bumped a cart or left a wet floor sign in her way, oh boy, yeah, the fury unleashed. "Watch where you're going, you idiot," she'd hiss, her voice echoing down the empty halls. Mike would clench his jaw, feeling the heat rise in his chest, but he'd mutter an apology and keep mopping. Inside, his thoughts raced. Who does she think she is? I've seen more suffering in this hospital than she'll ever treat. But what can I do? I'm just the janitor. One particularly grueling week, Lily came down with a fever, and Mike had to call in sick twice to care for her. When he returned, the hospital was buzzing with tension. Budget cuts meant longer hours for everyone, and Elena was on a warpath. She cornered him in the break room one evening, her arms crossed, lips pursed in that signature scowl. "You've been slacking," she accused, not even knowing his name. "The floors in my wing look like a pigsty. If I have to report you to maintenance, I will. People like you are replaceable." Mike's heart pounded, his fists balling at his sides. He wanted to shout back, tell her about the sleepless nights, the grief that still choked him, the daughter who needed him more than this job ever could. But he swallowed it down, nodding silently. One day, he thought, "You'll see, we're all just people trying to survive." The tension simmered, building like a storm cloud. Elena's rudeness escalated. She'd leave coffee cups spilled on purpose, knowing he'd have to clean them, or bark orders over the intercom for him to fetch supplies like he was her personal servant. Mike's co-workers noticed, and the nurses would shoot him sympathetic looks, whispering, "She's impossible, don't let her get to you." But it did get to him. Late at night, alone with his mop, he'd replay the insults, feeling that familiar powerless rage bubble up. His body ached from the physical work, but the emotional toll was worse, as the constant reminder that no matter how hard he tried, he'd always be seen as less than. Then came the turning point. It was a Thursday night, around 2 a.m., the hospital a ghost town except for the beeps of monitors and the distant hum of vending machines. Mike was finishing his rounds, pushing his cart down the long corridor toward the elevators. Elena emerged from her office, coat slung over her arm, clearly exhausted from a long day. She strode ahead, her footsteps quick and purposeful. By chance, Mike's path took him in the same direction. He needed to restock supplies on the next floor. She glanced over her shoulder, her eyes narrowing at the sight of him a few paces behind. Paranoia kicked in, fueled by her high-stress life and perhaps a touch of entitlement. She stopped abruptly, whirling around with fire in her gaze. "Don't follow me," she snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Mike froze, mop in hand, feeling the sting like a slap. His pulse raced, anger mixing with confusion. "Follow you, lady, I'm just doing my job." But before he could respond, she turned away, her neck exposed for just a moment under the hallway lights. A small, asymmetrical mole on the side of her neck, just below her ear. It was darker than it should be, with jagged edges and a faint reddish halo. Classic signs of melanoma, the same aggressive skin cancer that had stolen Sarah from him. Mike's medical training, though unfinished, flooded back. He'd spent countless hours researching during Sarah's illness, poring over images and symptoms. His stomach twisted. If untreated, this could be deadly. But after her outburst, doubt crept in. "Why should I say anything? She's treated me like dirt. Let her figure it out herself." He wrestled with it all night, pacing his small apartment after his shift, Lily asleep in the next room. The injustice burned. Years of being belittled, and now he held the power to save her, or not. But Mike wasn't wired for cruelty. By morning, resolve hardened in his chest. "This isn't about revenge," he told himself, "but damn if it won't feel good to prove her wrong." He planned it carefully. No confrontation, just a quiet note slipped under her office door before his next shift. "Dr. Vargas, I noticed a concerning mole on your neck. It looks like it could be melanoma. Please get it checked. Mike, janitor." Elena found the note the next day, crumpling it with a scoff. A janitor giving medical advice. Ridiculous. But the seed of worry planted itself. She touched the spot absent-mindedly during rounds, her mind flashing to patient cases she'd seen. By evening, curiosity or fear won out. She examined it in the mirror, then scheduled a biopsy with a colleague, telling no one about the source. Weeks later, the results came back, early-stage melanoma, caught just in time. Surgery was swift, a small scar her only reminder. Elena sat in her office, staring at the pathology report, her hands trembling. The what-ifs crashed over her. If ignored, it could have metastasized, ending her career, her life. And the messenger, the man she dismissed as worthless. She found Mike in the basement supply room, restocking shelves. He looked up, surprise flickering in his tired eyes. "Dr. Vargas?" he said, wiping sweat from his brow. Her voice cracked, uncharacteristically soft. You saved my life." She pulled back her collar, showing the faint scar. "The mole, it was cancer." "How did you know?" Mike's heart swelled, a mix of triumph and relief washing over him. He explained about Sarah, his med school days, the knowledge etched into his soul. Elena's face crumpled, shame etching lines around her eyes. "I've been horrible to you, to everyone like you. I thought I was above it all, but I'm sorry." Truly, in that moment, the power dynamic shattered. She wasn't the untouchable doctor anymore, she was vulnerable, human. Mike felt the weight lift, not just from the apology, but from the validation. He wasn't invisible, he was the hero. As she walked away, promising to advocate for better staff treatment and even offering to help him finish his degree, Mike allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. Payback doesn't always hurt, he thought. Sometimes, it heals. Stories like this remind us that justice often comes in unexpected packages. Mike didn't seek revenge with malice, he chose kindness, and in doing so, exposed the cracks in Elena's armor. It's a lesson in empathy. You never know who's watching, or what battles they're fighting. Karma has a way of circling back, doesn't it? Phew. If that payoff gave you the chills like it did me, smash that like button and drop a comment below. What's the most underrated act of kindness that's ever turned into sweet justice for you? Share your stories. I read every one. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more Reddit revenge tales that prove the underdog always has the last bark. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly under flickering fluorescent lights, the kind that made everything feel colder, lonelier. Mike Hargrove, a single dad pushing 40, maneuvered his cleaning cart through the late-night quiet of St. Jude's Medical Center. His hands, rough from years of scrubbing floors, gripped the mop handle tightly, and not from effort, but from the weight of another day surviving. His daughter, Sophie, was waiting at home with her aunt, probably asking why Daddy worked so late again. Mike swallowed the ache and kept moving. Ahead, Dr. Vanessa Reed stormed out of her office, her stethoscope swinging like a pendulum. She was a neurosurgeon, mid-40s, with a reputation sharper than her scalpel. Her dark hair was pulled into a severe bun, and her eyes carried the exhaustion of someone who held lives in her hands daily. As Mike's cart rattled behind her, heading toward the same supply closet, she spun around, her face a mask of irritation. "Don't follow me," she snapped, her voice slicing through the silence. Mike froze, the sting of her words landing like a punch. He wasn't following her, just doing his rounds. But in that fleeting moment, as she turned away, he noticed her gait falter, a subtle stumble, her hand brushing the wall for balance. To anyone else, it might have been nothing. To Mike, a former EMT, it screamed stroke risk. His heart raced. Should he speak up and risk her wrath, or stay invisible? As always, Mike stood rooted in the corridor, the echo of Dr. Reed's snap lingering like a bad smell. His pulse thudded in his ears, a mix of anger and instinct battling it out. He wasn't a stranger to being dismissed. 5 years as a janitor had taught him that his blue coveralls made him invisible to the hospital's elite. But that stumble, that brief moment where her polished facade cracked, gnawed at him. He'd seen it before, years ago, in his wife, Clara. A dizzy spell here, a clumsy step there he ignored until a massive stroke stole her at 32, leaving him and Sophie alone. The memory clawed at his chest, sharp and raw. Mike's life hadn't always been mop buckets and midnight shifts. He'd been an EMT once, racing through city streets, saving lives with quick thinking and steady hands. He dreamed of med school, but Clara's pregnancy changed the plan. They were happy, thought Sophie's giggles filled their tiny apartment with light. Then came the stroke, the hospital bills, the funeral. Mike traded sirens for brooms, taking the janitor job for its health insurance and stable hours. It kept Sophie fed, but every shift reminded him of what he'd lost. The doctors, like Vanessa, saw him as a cog, not a man who'd won 3 DKGs better than some of their residents. He pushed his cart to the supply closet, the wheels squeaking in protest. Vanessa's words replayed, "Don't follow me." And he felt the familiar burn of being less than. She was a star in neurosurgery, known for precision in the OR but ice cold outside it. Nurses whispered about her tantrums, how she'd berate staff for minor errors, her voice cutting like glass. Mike had felt it too, the time she'd yelled at him for a misplaced trash bin, calling him useless in front of a crowded nurses' station. He'd bitten his tongue, thinking of Sophie's school fees, but the humiliation lingered. That night, as he drove home through rain-slicked streets, the stumble haunted him. He knew the signs of transient ischemic attacks, many strokes that could foreshadow a big one. Clara had ignored hers, and he'd been too young, too trusting to push. Now, at 38, he knew better, but why help Vanessa? She'd never see him as anything but the guy who cleaned her spills. At home, Sophie slept, her stuffed bunny clutched tight. Mike kissed her forehead, the weight of his choice settling in. He could stay silent, let karma do its work, or he could act, proving he was more than his badge. The next evening, Mike's nerves buzzed as he clocked in. The hospital hummed, monitors beeping, phones ringing, the smell of antiseptic thick. He found Vanessa in the cafeteria, alone with the coffee, her hand trembling slightly as she stirred it. He approached, heart pounding. "Dr. Reed, can I talk to you a second?" She looked up, eyes narrowing. "What is it?" "I'm busy." He took a breath. "Last night, when you walked away, I saw you stumble. You grabbed the wall. I used to be an EMT. Those can be signs of a mini stroke. You should get a scan." Her face darkened, a storm brewing. "You're diagnosing me?" "A janitor," she laughed, cold and sharp. "I save brains for a living. I think I'd know if I was at risk. Stick to cleaning and leave medicine to professionals." She stood, brushing past him, her coffee slashing onto the table. Mike cleaned it up, his jaw tight, but doubt crept in. Was he wrong? Weeks passed, the incident fading but not forgotten. Mike threw himself into Sophie's world, helping with her science fair project, reading her bedtime stories about brave explorers. But at work, he noticed Vanessa more. She was paler, her movements slower, though she hid it well. One night, he overheard nurses gossiping. "She's been busy, but won't see anyone. Says it's stress." Mike's gut twisted. He wrote an anonymous note, "Please get a brain scan, concerned coworker," and slipped it under her office door. Then, it happened. A frantic code blue blared during his shift. "Stroke in neuro." The intercom screamed. Mike sprinted to the scene, old instincts kicking in. Vanessa lay crumpled in her office, papers scattered, her face slack. Staff swarmed, but Mike pushed through. "I know CPR," he shouted, dropping to his knees. His hands found her chest, compressions steady as he counted aloud. The defibrillator arrived. Shocks jolted her back. In the chaos, a nurse whispered, "That note has she got a scan scheduled tomorrow." In the ICU, Vanessa stabilized. Mike waited, hands shaking from adrenaline. When she woke, groggy but alert, she saw him. "You." "The janitor," she rasped. "Mike," he said softly, "I'm glad you're okay." Tears welled in her eyes. "The scan. They found a clot." "You were right. And I pray you saved me." She paused, voice breaking. "I was awful to you." "I'm sorry." Mike nodded, relief washing over him. "We all miss things sometimes." She reached out, her hand steady now. "You're no janitor. You're a lifesaver. Let me help you with training, anything." Months later, Vanessa recovered, softer, kinder. She funded a scholarship for Mike to return to EMT certification, a step toward his old dreams. At Sophie's school play, Vanessa sat beside him, clapping as Sophie took her boo. The snap in the corridor had been a spark, igniting not revenge, but redemption for both of them. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry hornets, casting a sterile glow over the empty hospital corridor. It was well past midnight, the witching hour when the world outside slept, but inside these walls, life and death danced their eternal tango. Mike Hargrove, a single dad in his late 30s, pushed his mop bucket along the linoleum floor, the wheels squeaking faintly in protest. His back ached from hours of bending and scrubbing, but he pressed on. All bills didn't pay themselves, and little Emma needed new shoes for school. Ahead of him, Dr. Lydia Kensington stormed out of her office, her white coat flapping like a cape. She was a force of nature, mid-40s, with sharp features and an even sharper tongue. As the hospital's top cardiologist, she commanded respect or fear from everyone. But tonight, exhaustion etched lines around her eyes. She glanced back, spotting Mike a few paces behind, heading the same way to the supply closet. Her heels clicked to a halt. She whirled around, her face twisted in irritation. "Don't follow me," she snapped, her voice echoing off the walls like a whip crack. Mike froze, mop in hand, feeling the familiar sting of invisibility. He wasn't following her, he was just doing his job. But before he could mutter an apology, his eyes caught it, a faint, irregular tremor in her left hand, barely noticeable, like a whisper of something deadly lurking beneath her polished exterior. Mike's heart skipped. Years ago, before life derailed him into janitorial scrubs, he'd been a paramedic. He knew the signs of an impending heart issue all too well. His own wife had ignored similar warnings until it was too late. As Lydia turned away, dismissing him like dust, Mike swallowed hard. He could say nothing and let fate take its course, or he could speak up, risking her wrath. The choice hung in the air, heavy as the mop water sloshing in his bucket. Mike stood there in the corridor long after Dr. Kensington's footsteps faded into the distance, the mop handle digging into his palm like an accusation. He replayed the moment in his mind, the sharpness of her voice, the way her eyes had narrowed as if he were some stalker rather than the guy who cleaned up after her late-night coffee spills. "Don't follow me." The words burned, not because they were new, but because they were so familiar. In the 5 years since he'd taken this job at Mercy General, Mike had become a ghost in blue coveralls, invisible to the white-coated elite who saved lives while he scrubbed away the evidence of their battles. But tonight, that invisibility had given him a front-row seat to something she couldn't see herself. He leaned against the wall, the cool tile seeping through his thin shirt, and let his thoughts drift back to how he'd ended up here. It started with Sarah, his high school sweetheart turned wife, the woman who'd believed in him when no one else did. They'd met at community college, both dreaming bigger of teaching, him of becoming a doctor someday. But life had other plans. Emma came along unexpectedly, a bundle of joy that shifted their priorities. Mike traded med school ambitions for paramedic training, a faster path to stability. It was grueling work, racing ambulances through city streets, but it paid enough for their little apartment and Sarah's part-time gigs. Then came the diagnosis. Sarah's headaches, dismissed at first as stress, turned out to be a brain aneurysm waiting to rupture. One night, it did. Mike was on shift when the call came. Ironic, cruel even. He arrived at the ER to find her already in surgery, her chances slim. She pulled through, but the recovery was hell. Therapy sessions, mounting bills, and the constant fear it could happen again. Mike quit the paramedics to care for her full-time, picking up odd jobs. When Sarah finally passed 2 years later from complications, he was left with a tattler, a mountain of debt, and a shattered dream. The janitor position at the hospital was a lifeline, steady hours, health insurance for Emma, and a bitter reminder of what could have been. Shaking off the memories, Mike finished his shift in a daze. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and radio static. His sister, who babysat Emma on nights like this, greeted him at the door with a tired smile. "Rough one?" she asked, handing over a sleeping Emma bundled in her pajamas. "You could say that," Mike muttered, cradling his daughter. Emma's soft breaths against his neck grounded him, a reminder of why he endured the humiliation. At 6 years old, she was all curls and questions, asking about mommy in heaven and why daddy worked so late. He tucked her into bed, kissing her forehead, and collapsed onto the couch with a beer. The tremor in Dr. Kensington's hand haunted him. As a paramedic, he'd seen it before, early signs of arrhythmia or worse, a precursor to a cardiac event. Ignored, it could kill. But why should he care? She treated him like dirt, like all the support staff. Last week, she'd yelled at him for a wet floor sign blocking her path, calling him incompetent in front of nurses. "People like you are why this place is a mess," she'd sneered. Yet, as the beer warmed in his hand, guilt crept in. Sarah had ignored her symptoms too, brushing off the headaches as just tiredness. If someone had noticed her earlier, Mike sighed, pulling out his phone. He searched for cardiologist symptoms, confirming what he suspected: irregular hand tremors could signal atrial fibrillation, especially in high-stress professionals like her. He debated anonymously tipping off the hospital HR, but that felt cowardly. No, if he was going to do this, he'd do it right face-to-face, proving he wasn't just the janitor. The next night, Mike arrived early, his nerves jangling like loose change in his pocket. The hospital hummed with evening activity, nurses charting at stations, patients' families milling in waiting areas, the scent of antiseptic mingling with cafeteria food. He clocked in, grabbed his cart, and headed to the cardiology wing. Dr. Kensington's office light was on, her silhouette visible through the frosted glass. He knocked softly, heart pounding. "Come in," she called, her tone impatient. Mike stepped inside, the room a stark contrast to his world: a polished desk, diplomas on the walls, a view of the city skyline. She looked up from her computer, frowning. "What do you want?" "If it's about maintenance, file a ticket." "It's not that, Dr. Kensington," Mike said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Last night, when you told me not to follow you, I noticed something." Your left hand up. It was trembling slightly. "I used to be a paramedic, and I've seen that before. It could be nothing, but it might be a sign of arrhythmia. You should get it checked." Her face hardened, a storm brewing in her eyes. She leaned back, crossing her arms. "A janitor giving me medical advice? That's rich. Do you have any idea who I am?" "I've been practicing cardiology for 20 years. I think I'd know if something was wrong with my own heart." She stood, pointing to the door. "Get out. And if you spread this nonsense, I'll have you fired." Mike's cheeks burned, but he held his ground. "I'm not trying to overstep, my wife." She ignored symptoms like that. It cost her life. "I just thought out," she barked, her voice rising. He left, the door clicking shut behind him like a final judgment. In the hallway, a nurse glanced his way sympathetically, but Mike waved her off. He spent the rest of the shift in autopilot, scrubbing floors with furious energy. "Ungrateful," he thought. "I tried to help, and she threatens my job." But beneath the anger, worry lingered. What if he was right? Days blurred into weeks. Mike avoided the cardiology wing when possible, sticking to other floors. Emma kept him going at her school projects, bedtime stories about brave knights saving the day. He even started volunteering at her class, helping with arts and crafts, feeling useful in a way the hospital denied him. But whispers reached him. Dr. Kensington was pushing herself harder, taking on extra cases, snapping at staff more than usual. One evening, as he emptied trash in the break room, he overheard two residents gossiping. "She's been complaining of fatigue," one said, "brushed it off as overwork." "Yeah, but that handshake, I saw it during rounds." She laughed it off. But Mike's stomach knotted. He wanted to feel vindicated, but instead, pity stirred. Lydia Kensington wasn't just a doctor, she was human. Flawed like everyone. Her bio on the hospital website painted a picture: orphaned young, fought through scholarships to med school, built a career on sheer will. No family mentioned it, and no wonder she was armored in arrogance. Then, the incident happened. It was a stormy Tuesday, rain lashing the windows like accusations. Mike was mopping the lobby when chaos erupted, codes blaring, staff rushing. "Cardiac arrest in admin," someone yelled. Mike dropped his mop and ran, old paramedic instincts kicking in. He arrived to find Dr. Kensington on the floor of her office, colleagues performing CPR. Her face was paled, lips bluish. Without thinking, Mike shoved through. "Move." "I know compressions." He took over, his hand steady on her chest, counting rhythms. 1, 2, 3. The defibrillator arrived. Shocks administered. Minutes felt like hours, but her pulse returned a faint, erratic. As they wheeled her to ICU, a nurse patted his back. "You saved her, Mike." In the waiting area, Mike paced, adrenaline crashing. The tremor, he'd been right. Atrial fibrillation had led to a clot, causing a minor stroke mid-heart episode, caught early, thanks to the quick response. But if ignored longer, he sat with his head in hands, emotions swirling, relief, anger, a twisted satisfaction. When the head of maintenance found him, It wasn't to scold. "Doc's asking for you." "She's stable." Mike entered the ER room hesitantly. Lydia lay there, monitors beeping softly, 4 lines snaking her arms. She looked smaller, vulnerable without her coat. Her eyes met his, softened by pain meds or realization. "You," she whispered. "The janitor." "Mike," he corrected gently. "Mike, they said you did CPR. Saved my life." A tear escaped. "I remember what you said, about the tremor. I ignored it. Thought you were beneath me." Her voice broke. "I'm sorry for everything, the snapping, the disrespect. I was wrong." Mike nodded, throat tight. "I get it. Stress, right? But we're all in this together." "Doctors," Janitor said, "doesn't matter." She reached out, her hand steady now post-treatment. "No, it does matter. You've got skills. Why are you cleaning floors?" He shared his story. "Sarah, Ma, the dreams deferred." Lydia listened, really listened. "Let me help," she said. "I know people. Scholarships, part-time med programs. You could finish what you started." It was an immediate revenge, not the dramatic takedown of egos, but something deeper. In the following months, as Lydia recovered, she changed. She advocated for staff appreciation days, pushed for better pay for support roles, and true to her word, she connected Mike with the program in night classes toward nursing, then maybe med school. He enrolled, balancing work and studies, Emma cheering him on. One evening, as Mike studied in the hospital library, Lydia stopped by. "Hey, future doctor," she teased lightly. No snap, no disdain, just respect. Mike smiled, the weight of years lifting. He'd seen the one thing that saved her life, but in doing so, he'd reclaimed his own. The quarter encounter, once a humiliation, became a turning point. Karma, it seemed, wore blue coveralls and carried the mop, proving that sometimes, the invisible ones see the most. But the story didn't end there. As Mike delved deeper into his studies, memories of that night resurfaced in waves, each one carrying layers of emotion he hadn't fully unpacked. The satisfaction of being right mingled with the fear of what could have been up if he'd stayed silent, if resentment had won. He journaled about it late at night, after tucking Emma in, the soft glow of his lamp illuminating pages filled with reflections. "It's funny," he wrote, "how one snap can echo forever, but one act of noticing can silence it." Lydia's recovery was a journey in itself. From her hospital bed, she confronted the isolation her ambition had built. No visitors coming, no family, few friends. Colleagues sent cards, but the room felt empty. In therapy sessions mandated post-stroke, she admitted the truth. Her rudeness was a shield, forged from years of proving herself in a field that doubted women. "I pushed people away," she told her counselor, "because if I didn't need them, they couldn't hurt me." But Mike's intervention cracked that armor. She started thanking nurses by name, joining staff lunches. The change rippled morale and cardiology improved. Turnover dropped. Mike, meanwhile, thrived in his program. His paramedic experience gave him an edge. Classmates sought his advice on real-world applications. Emma beamed at parent-teacher conferences when he shared his progress. "Daddy's going to be a doctor," she'd announce, drawing pictures of him in a white coat. But challenges arose. Balancing shifts, homework, and parenting stretched him thin. One night, exhausted, he nearly quit after bombing a quiz. A call from Lydia steadied him. "Remember why you started," she said. "For Sarah, for Emma. You've got this." Their unlikely friendship deepened. Coffee breaks turned into mentorship sessions. She reviewed his notes, shared case studies. "You have a gift for spotting the subtle," she'd say, referencing that fateful tremor. Mike learned about her post-abusive foster homes, scraping by on remnant in med school. Vulnerability bridged their worlds. He invited her to Emma's birthday party, where she arrived with a stethoscope toy, awkward but genuine. Yet, shadows lingered. Rumors circulated about Mike's heroics, some praising, others envious. A few doctors eyed him warily, as if his insight threatened their authority. One, Dr. Harlan, a pompous surgeon, cornered him. "Stick to mops, Hargrove. Leave medicine to the pros." It stung, echoing Lydia's old snap. But Mike stood tall. "I did, once, saved a life doing it." The climax came during a hospital gala, fundraising for new equipment. Mike attended as Lydia's guest, uncomfortable in a borrowed suit. She took the stage, sharing her story, the ignored symptoms, The janitor's warning, the collapse. Mike Hargrove didn't just save my life, he reminded me of humility. Tonight, I pledge support for staff education programs. Applause thundered. Eyes turned to Mike, who blushed under the spotlight. Later, Harlan approached, mumbling an apology. Didn't know your background. As the night wound down, Lydia pulled Mike aside. That snap in the corridor? It was my lowest point, but you turned it into my salvation. Mike nodded, peace settling in. And mine. Walking home under starlit skies, he felt holy, and not just a dad or janitor, but the man reclaiming his path. The story of that night became legend at Mercy General, a reminder that heroes wear many uniforms, and sometimes, the sharpest words lead to the softest healings.